Welcome to part 2 of today's class. I'd like everybody to go over to 3.5 where it says listen and check, but we'll be doing it in the sense that I'll be saying it. I'll be saying what's written there. And you can repeat where you are. Feel free to send me audio files, lydfil, lydopptak. You can make one with your phone or with whatever you have, whatever technology you have, and send it to me, and I'll send you the feedback that you need with correction, or just to say, hey, that was great, no mistakes at all. So here we are. Let me fix everything and put myself in the little box. There I am. And I'll maximize this window here. So let's start. Stayed, played, phoned, answered, stopped, worked, laughed, looked, decided, studied, wanted, mended. I have a great idea for what I'm going to do. Not that great, that fantastic an idea, but I'm just going to cut. I should have done this for the first part of this video, actually. But it's all good. I'm going to fix it now. Just want to make sure. I'm going to cut this bit, which is the pronunciation. D, t, id. It's extremely important. Here we go. Endre størrelse. Change the size. Let's see how this is now. Oh, perfect. I didn't think it was going to be that great. But it's not that fantastic, but it's so much better than what I thought. Okay. I think this is when I need to move. There we go. Now we're talking. Stayed, played, phoned, answered, stopped, worked, laughed, looked, decided, studied, wanted, mended. That's what I was looking for. I'm actually going to save this as past tense pronunciation. There we go. Keep a new one open and move along. So the pronunciation of the past tense of the verbs, what happens is it's probably a lot easier for people to just pronounce them in isolation, but when you have actual sentences to say, it probably becomes a bit more difficult. So here, there are some sentences, examples of sentences that you can practice saying. We stayed in a hotel. So you actually have the D from stayed getting together straight away with the word in. Stayed in. We stayed in a hotel, and then in a hotel. We stayed in a hotel. They played on the beach. Not on the beach, but on the beach. They played on the beach. Played on. D. Played on. They played on the beach. She phoned a friend. Phoned. Phoned a friend. I answered all the questions. They stopped at lunchtime. Stopped at. So it's that. Do not pronounce that E. Do not pronounce it. Do not pronounce it as an E. Do not pronounce it as an E. It is just not pronounced. It is not pronounced at all. Stopped. Actually, just practice. Just the P and a T sounds together. Without any sort of vowel in between. Stopped. Stopped at a lunch. They stopped at a luncheon, or they stopped at lunchtime. They stopped at a lunch restaurant. They stopped at lunchtime. They stopped at. I worked in a bank. Worked in. Worked in. I worked in a bank. We laughed and laughed. I looked at the photo. I looked at the photo. Looked at. Looked at. I looked at the photo. We decided immediately. So here you can actually say the whole syllable. Decided. If you really feel, oh, I really want to pronounce that E, there is an E in the ED. There's an E there. Why can't I pronounce it? Well, good news. If the verb in the infinitive ends in a D or a T, so in the infinitive, like decide, report, record, demand, then you can pronounce the entire thing. Demanded, reported. You can say the whole thing. Go to town with it. Decided. Manded. Demanded. You can do that. But not with verbs like asked, stopped, talked. You can't pronounce the E in there. So let's go back to where we were. We laughed and laughed. Laughed. We laughed and laughed. I looked at the photo. We decided immediately. I studied at university. Studied at. That. There's a D-A-T here that you're going to pronounce. Studied at. So it's a D. Studied. It's a D. She wanted a cup of tea. So go crazy here. Pronounce your syllable. Pronounce the E in wanted. Usually I've heard a lot of American people say wanted. I myself, I believe that when I say it, if I'm speaking, I usually will just say I wanted to come over here. I don't even pronounce that T that comes from want. I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that. I wanted a cup of tea. I mended it. This is it for this drill. Feel free to send me, if you want to send me your audio file for me to hear your pronunciation of these sentences. I'll be happy to listen to it. I'll be happy to give you feedback. This is what this whole thing is for. The online classes, they're supposed to give you as much as a real life experience as possible. Because what happens is there is no guarantee that after the 26th that we'll be able to have classes sitting in a classroom. And as sad and devastated as a lot of us are, we might not be able to sit in the classroom before God knows when. Probably not anytime soon. So this is going to be it. So it's very important that get in touch with me. Send me emails with your work, written work, audio files, schedule video conferences with me. I'm not going to give anybody more than 5-10 minutes because it includes the time of the class. And in 1.5 hour, everybody will speak a few minutes. So I'm computing this time into the time that I will give privately to people to have a video conference with me or audio conference, whatever I can. But I do have other classes. I have Selbu High School. I'm also teaching online. And I decided to do this hands-on, full-on teaching on camera. And I know that a lot of teachers are like, oh, I don't want to be on camera. I'm fine with it. So I'll be on camera. I'll be teaching. The chat box will be open. You can comment on the video to have feedback, to communicate with me. And remember to refresh. As soon as I say refresh this and scroll to the top of the page, so you can navigate the Facebook page and actually find the live video when I'm on. So I really, really hope that this works. I'm going to give this my very best shot to finish all the courses, at least at Escola Learning Solutions, online. Here we go. What's in the news? Listen and practice the sentences. Notice the pronunciation of was and were. I was having dinner. Was having dinner. What was she wearing? They were playing football. Where were you going? He wasn't listening. They weren't enjoying the party. Of course, there are alternative pronunciations. They weren't enjoying the party. If you don't want to say party, you're perfectly allowed to say party. As long as people know what you're saying, pronunciation is when it's intelligible. And by intelligible, I mean not that you sound intelligent. Intelligible is a word that means understandable. Now I'm going to pull my Microsoft board so I can write something on it. So intelligible pronunciation, what does that mean? Intelligible pronunciation is pronunciation that people can understand. That's intelligible. I'm going to write the word for you. And like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. It has something to do with understood. What people are able to understand. And here's how you spell intelligible. Intelligible. Here is the word intelligible. And like I said, it does not mean intelligent. It means something that you can comprehend, that you can understand. Förståelig. Jeg kan forstå deg. Så det betyr at når du snakker, det du sier er intelligible. I can understand you. Intelligible pronunciation. Intelligible. Everything that people are able to understand is intelligible. And that's the pronunciation we're looking for. We're not looking for, oh, you have to have a perfect American accent. Oh, you have to have a perfect British accent. No, you have to have a pronunciation that's intelligible. It's something called EIC, which is the big trend for nowadays. EIC, English for International Communication. And that is what it's all about at the moment. You will speak with a type of pronunciation that people can understand, and you can communicate with people from other cultures and who speak other languages using English as the language for communication. So English for International Communication, EIC, is more important. Intelligible pronunciation is more important than a perfect accent. Of course, if you're a teacher, you want to have a very good accent. You have to sound as close to a native speaker as possible so that you can give good guidelines to your students. But apart from that, if you're somebody who just wants to use English for communication, what you're looking for is EIC. There is a test called the TOEIC Test of English for International Communication, which tests exactly that, how people can communicate effectively in the language. It's not really about grammar or structure. It is more about intelligibility and comprehension and being able to communicate. Of course, it depends on your goal. If your goal is to get a master's degree or a doctorate or to work with business English, then you have to have academic structure. You have to write very well, and you have to speak with still intelligible pronunciation, but then your writing has to be more academic. Moving along. Here's where we are. 3.7. 3.7. Now everybody, you try over there where you are, wherever you are, try to pronounce this. I was having dinner. Was having dinner. So it's a z. I know Norwegian doesn't have z, doesn't have vibrant sound, so it can be difficult for native speakers of Norwegian to actually produce that sound. Z. Was. I was having dinner. What was she wearing? What was she wearing? They were playing football. Remember, were, where, where are you from? I'm exaggerating just for the sake of this, but you should open your mouth more to say, where are you from? Where were you? So it's very important to, it's almost like aerobics for your face, not quite as hard as aerobics for your face when you try to speak Norwegian, because Norwegian has a lot of fancy sounds. It's very difficult to pronounce. English is a lot easier. Where were you going? They weren't enjoying the party. He wasn't listening. So please make sure that you do your Z's very good. Very well. Z. You have to feel vibration here in this part of your neck. Z. What was she wearing? I wasn't here. Very important. So this was 3.7. We're moving on to the next. I was supposed to go to the school to pick up my books, but I have been trying not to go to town the past few days. And I've been trying really hard to really do what I've been asked to do and not expose myself to the risk of coronavirus. It's been really difficult for everybody. But I feel like if everyone follows the guidelines, we can be out of the woods in a little bit. So listen to 5 radio news headlines. What is the first story about? The second. Write a number from 1 to 5. Here are the news headlines. A car bomb in Moscow kills 3 people. Thieves steal paintings worth $80 million from a New York museum. A national strike in France brings the country to a stop. The 71-year-old actor James Robertson dies at his home in California. And in the European Cup, Arsenal beat Real Madrid. All right, we're going to listen to the actual file, but it's probably not going to be perfect sound because it's going from these onto the mic. But I'll post the link to this video that has all the audio files where you can actually listen to it yourself.
Museum. A national strike in France brings the country to a stop. The 71-year-old actor James Robertson dies at his home in California. And in the European Cup, Arsenal beat Real Madrid.
Let's try this again. And he said Real Madrid. But of course it's more like I said, it's understandable, it's intelligible, but it's not the pronunciation from Spanish, Real Madrid. And it doesn't matter because we know he's talking about Real Madrid. We know he's talking about the soccer team. So that's what intelligibility is all about. Making yourself understood.
The news.
Here are the news headlines. A car bomb in Moscow kills 3 people. Thieves steal paintings worth $80 million from a New York museum. A national strike in France brings the country to a stop. The 71-year-old actor James Robertson dies at his home in California. And in the European Cup, Arsenal beat Real Madrid.
So listen to the 5 radio news headlines. What is the first story about? Is it about a strike, an explosion, a crime, a football match, or a death? So the very first one, a car bomb. So a bomb explodes. So this one is about an explosion. The second one, thieves steal paintings worth $80 million from a New York museum. So we already took away explosion. It's not about an explosion anymore. So here we have a strike. What is a strike? When everybody stops working. When everybody stops. There have been some strikes here in Norway before. I remember bus drivers had a strike a while ago, a couple of years ago. Teachers had a strike. They stopped working for better salaries. But this one, thieves steal paintings worth $80 million from a New York museum. That is a crime. Stealing, taking something that's not yours, å stjäla, to steal, so it's a crime. Third one, a national strike in France brings the country to a stop. That's an easy one. National strike, it's about a strike. Next one, the 71-year-old actor James Robertson dies at his home in California. This one is about a death. The death of James Robertson, who's probably not a real actor. I know Robert Redford. Maybe there is a James Robertson and I'm just not aware of it. And the very last one, and in the European Cup, Arsenal beat Real Madrid. That one is about a football match. So that was 3.8. Let's
Tape
go on.
script 3.9.
A car bomb exploded in central Moscow yesterday morning, killing 3 people who were shopping in a market and injuring many more. Most of those injured were women who were out shopping for food in the early morning and children who were on holiday. Terrorists say they planted the bomb. Last night, thieves in New York broke into the Museum of Modern Art and escaped with 3 paintings by Picasso valued at $80 million. Cameras were recording the rooms all the time, but the guard who was watching the screens saw nothing. Museum officials didn't discover the theft until the next morning. A national strike in France yesterday brought the country to a complete stop. Offices, banks, schools and shops all closed, and there were no trains or buses throughout the whole country. Workers were protesting for higher pay, longer holidays, and a shorter working week. The actor James Robertson died last night at his home in Hollywood, California. He was suffering from cancer. With him were his 5 children, his ex-wife, and his second wife, Cherie. The 71-year-old actor is best known for his role as the cowboy Dexter in Mad Men of the West. And finally, sport. Arsenal last night beat Real Madrid 2-1. At halftime, the Spanish side were winning 1-0, but then 2 goals by Johansson gave the London team a win.
A car bomb exploded in central Moscow yesterday morning, killing 3 people who were shopping in a market and injuring many more. Many of those injured were women who were out shopping for food in the early morning, and children who were on holiday. Terrorists say they planted the bomb. Last night, thieves in New York broke into a museum of modern art and escaped with 3 paintings by Picasso, valued at $80 million. Cameras were recording the rooms all the time, but the guard who was watching the screens saw nothing. Museum officials didn't discover the theft until the next morning. A national strike in France yesterday brought the country to a complete stop. Offices, banks, schools, and shops all closed. and there were no trains or buses throughout the whole country. Workers were protesting for higher pay, longer holidays, and a shorter working week. The actor James Robertson died last night at his home in Hollywood, California. He was suffering from cancer. With him were his 5 children, his ex-wife, and his second wife, Cherie. The 71-year-old actor is best known for his role as a cowboy Dexter in Mad Men of the West. And finally, sport. Arsenal last night beat Real Madrid 2-1. At halftime, the Spanish side were winning 1-0, but then 2 goals by Johansson gave the London team a win. So here are the news stories. Which questions were answered? So you can look at them on your book. And just for future reference, if you want, at the very end of the book, the very few last pages, I don't have the book with me because I haven't gone to the office to pick it up. I've been avoiding public transport for the past few days. So what you can do is go to the very end of the book. All of these books, these new Headway books, at the very end it says tape scripts. And you'll find the tape scripts, everything written, just as you have on the screen here. And the link to this YouTube video with all the book, I believe Pat Olaf has, shout out to Pat Olaf, I believe he has the file. I gave him a digital copy, and he made a file for himself. So he has a copy of it. But you can all just have it on YouTube. You can find it somewhere. It's not that difficult to find, but sometimes YouTube removes this type of video. But you can get the link from me, or you can just YouTube it. You go to YouTube where it says search on top here, where it says search, and you can write New Headway Pre-Intermediate 4th edition. If you write that, you will get this video, and you can listen to it several times.
Tape script 3.10. A dictation.
Last night, thieves in New York.
So this is a dictation. So this is someone reading it really slowly so that you can write it down. What you can do is not look at the screen for a bit, get a notebook, and try to write the stuff down. Don't cheat. Pick up a notebook or a piece of paper or something. Don't look at the screen or at your phone or whatever, and just try to listen and write the stuff down. If you can't really understand, because the audio might not be very good coming from the speakers, I will read it after she reads it. So let me restart it.
Tape script 3.7.
And there were no
With 3 paintings. Tonight.
The actor James Robertson
Just after
died
this.
last night at his home in Hollywood, California. He was suffering from cancer. With him were his 5
Just a
children,
second.
his ex-wife, and his second wife, Cherie. The 71-year-old actor is best known for his role as the cowboy Dexter in Mad Men of the West. And finally, sport. Arsenal last night beat Real Madrid 2-1. At halftime, the Spanish side were winning 1-0, but then 2 goals by Johansson gave the London team a win.
Okay, so now 3.10,
Tape
a
script
dictation.
3.10. A dictation.
Don't look at the screen. Just try to listen and write it down. If it's too difficult to listen from the audio here, I will read it out loud after. Don't look at the screen. Just look down, get your pencil, write it down.
Last night. Thieves in New York broke into the Museum of Modern Art and escaped with 3 paintings by Picasso, comma, valued at $80 million, full stop. Cameras were recording the rooms all the time, comma, but the guard who was watching the screens saw nothing, full stop. Museum officials didn't discover the theft until the next morning, full stop.
So notice that she says comma and full stop. So a comma is that thing that we always have to have. And of course, when you're not completely going to make a pause, it's a brief pause, you use a comma. But when you make a full stop, then you use a period. So whenever she says full stop, you're supposed to add a period. Okay, so here goes. I'm going to read it now. And I'm also going to have it written on the screen for you so that you can hopefully see it. Endre størrelse, meaning change size. Og endre, to change. Here we go. Endre størrelse. I'm going to change the size again. Make it bigger so everybody can see it. And that backfired. That did not work as well as I thought. Okay, regret. I'm going to paste it in again. And hopefully it will be big enough. Last night, thieves in New York. So let me have it here and see how big it is. Actually quite small. So let me think of a solution here. I believe I can make it bigger if I zoom in on it. Anyway, I'll just read it and you try to write it down. Last night, thieves in New York broke into the Museum of Modern Art. Last night, thieves in New York broke into the Museum of Modern Art and escaped with 3 paintings. Last night, thieves in New York broke into the Museum of Modern Art and escaped with 3 paintings by Picasso, comma, valued at $80 million, I'm going to say the whole sentence again. Last night, thieves in New York broke into the Museum of Modern Art and escaped with 3 paintings by Picasso, valued at $80 million. Full stop. Cameras were recording. Cameras were recording the rooms at all the time, or all the time. But the guard who was watching the screens saw nothing. Cameras were recording the rooms all the time, comma. But the guard who was watching the screens saw nothing. Full stop. That's where you add a period. Museum officials didn't discover the theft until the next morning. Cameras were recording the rooms all the time, comma. But the guard who was watching the screens saw nothing. Full stop. That's where you add a period. Museum officials didn't discover the theft until the next morning. Museum officials didn't discover the theft until the next morning. Okay, so here's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to save this somewhere else, and I'm going to try to make it bigger, and I'm going to call it paintings. There we go. And I'm going to put it in for you in just a second. I'm going to open it first. And I'm going to make sure that it's bigger so everybody can see. Now I think we got it. So you can actually see if you wrote it correctly. Last night, thieves in New York broke into the Museum of Modern Art and escaped with 3 paintings by Picasso, comma, valued at $80 million, full stop. Cameras were recording the rooms all the time, comma, but the guard who was watching the screens saw nothing, full stop. Museum officials didn't discover the theft until the next morning. We are now approaching the end. We have 7 minutes left. So I want to make clear to everyone, you have access to me through different mediums of communication. So what you can do is you can contact me on my Skype, which I'm going to be using for business, and it is Pollyanna Nielsen. You can contact me on there and have a video conference between 5 and 10 minutes, not so much more than that because it's not fair for everyone else. You can also like this page. It's called educator.pollyanna. If you like this page, then you can message me on this page and schedule with me a video conference at some point. I don't have that much time because I am also teaching kids from Selbo High School. I'm going to make sure that I try to accommodate everybody. You can write in the comments. You can send me an email. Let me write my email as well. and I'll be happy to accommodate people. Video conferences between 5 and 10 minutes, because just think about it. If everybody decides they want a video conference, just think about it. If everybody wants a video conference, and I actually concede a video conference to everyone, 10 minutes ahead, that's 60 minutes, that's an hour. And I'm only getting paid for the classes I'm actually teaching, the 45 minutes for part 1, the other video, and the 45 minutes for this bit here that I'm doing. So the additional time, this is me being cordial and giving you some speaking time. I'm also taking my personal time to correct your work, your written work, and I'm also receiving your audio files. You can also send your audio files via Skype, via Facebook, messaging me on this page, via email. I will be listening to your audio files. I will be giving you feedback. But during the classes themselves, this is the time that you get to sit and take the class and listen. But your interactions with the other students, unfortunately, you can't do that unless you have video conferences with them. And what happened was that Gazella and I had a conversation about it, that it would be best if you didn't have to expose yourselves. Not everybody likes to be on video. So instead of having everybody on video, everybody on audio, the teacher is on video and audio teaching, and the students get to have their classes. And if they need some extra time, then I will be able to give you video conferences between 5 and 10 minutes, starting from when this ends. And we can schedule something, but you have to keep in mind that I'm also doing my work at Selbo High School, and I have 30 students over there, and I'm trying to give them personal time as well, so one-to-one. So I'm trying to accommodate everybody. Thank you for this, and I hope you watch the video. I hope that you take notes, and I hope that this coronavirus thing blows over and we don't have to be doing this online, and you can be in the classrooms again soon.